Hi, I'm Michelle, and this is Someday is Here, the place where we get real, embrace being imperfect, and we show up anyway. Today, I want to talk to you about something that just happened, something I'm still sitting with. Because I think if you're a parent, or if you've ever loved someone so much that their pain becomes your pain, you might feel this one. So recently, one of our children had to go for a pretty major surgery, and they had some growths on their femur and their tibia, I believe, and they were going in to have them removed. And again, it was a pretty big surgery due to their locations. And I remember not being able to sleep the night before, right? And getting to the hospital and feeling really off kilter. Because once you walk through the doors to the hospital room, like the feelings in your job kind of shift. You go through this, like, or at least I did, go through this experience of like, it is my job to protect my children. And here I was in a situation where I literally had no control over the outcome. And it was very nerve wracking to say the least. I am definitely someone who can tend to go to worst case scenarios in my head. And so I have to be really intentional about talking myself down, right? And reminding myself, like, everything's okay, it's going to be okay. But when it's one of your children, I feel like it is very completely different. And if you've ever, gone through something like this, I'm sure you could relate. Um, and the other side of this is this particular child, they are fiercely independent and they pull inward when they're nervous. And I am the caretaker, so I'm the one that fusses over everybody and wants to make sure everything's okay and constantly checking in. And so as we're waiting, in pre-op and everybody's kind of coming in and talking to us and getting IVs and all of those things, I'm kind of fluttering around the room and like, are you okay? Do you need some? Da da da. Like trying to put my hand on their leg, like, it's okay, I'm here. And they're like pushing my hand off. And that's hard too as a parent. And it's one of those things, like, you want to respect their boundaries, right? And I felt like there's a little mom heart of me was like, oof, when they'd push me away. But I also had to acknowledge that that is their way, right? And we all have our own ways. But as a mom, right, I think you understand or might understand. Or as someone who just loves someone who maybe pushes away when they're nervous as well. Um, when your child has to have surgery, I think for me, one of my struggles was there's this stranger, or mostly stranger, I've met them a few times, who is going to be cutting your child open. And there is this innate panic that you feel when you think about that, because you think, or I thought, of all of the things that could go wrong. And what if we were making the wrong choice? Maybe we should have just left it, right? Like, we didn't have to have this done. And so you doubt and you question, but then you do, right? Our kid wanted to have the surgery, and the mass that they had was extremely large. And so for their comfort, we decided to move forward and to do this. And then, they take your child away from you and wheel them back, and you try to give your last hugs and kisses and comfort, and you just hope. And then you wait. And you pace. And you pace. You go up and down the floors. sat in the cafeteria, tried to eat some food, trying to read my book, waiting for the updates that come from the surgical room. And every time your phone goes off, you're like checking to see if it's them, letting you know where they're at in the process, how everything's going, are they okay? And while you're doing that, you just have, or I had, those thoughts just racing through my mind over and over. What if, what if, what if? And I had to keep centering myself. I had to keep grounding myself and reminding myself that everything was okay. Until I was told otherwise, everything was okay. And I wore my necklace that I wear a lot that had my grandma's thumbprint on it. And so I would just kind of rub her thumbprint and remind myself that she was there with me too and that it was going to be okay. But that doesn't make it easy. Every minute felt like an hour. And once you get the text from the operating room, it was like you could take like a small breath, like, oh, okay, that's validation. They're okay right now. After surgery, the doctor comes out and they tell us, it was one of the largest growths they've seen and that it was pressing on his femoral artery and that the other one that they were going to take off was unreachable. So now they have 2 open wounds, but only one was able to be removed. And you're thankful that you went ahead and had the surgery, now knowing that the one was pressing on the femoral artery. But then they're like, okay, well, we have to start them on aspirin because there's a risk for like a DVT blood clot. And here's all the things that they can't do. And this is what, this might look like. And here's all the medications they need to take and trying to explain that to you. And you go back into the recovery area and you see your kid like out of it, right? Because they're just coming out of surgery and they're just completely out of it. And they look so helpless. And they're in pain and it breaks your heart. It was hard to witness. It was hard to be there. There is no love like a parent's love. It is, especially a mother's love. It is, and I don't know how to explain it, but it is deep and it is fierce and it is all encompassing. And there's a quote out there that says something like, your heart is walking around outside your body. And it is so absolutely true. Because in those moments where you see and witness these kinds of things and are part of these things, like you just hold your breath and you wish you could take their pain. When we left the hospital, it felt exactly like it did the first time you're bringing home a newborn baby. Where you're in the car and you're like worried and you're driving like really carefully because you don't want them to jostle and you don't want anything to happen because they're already in a state of, being a little bit more fragile. And it just completely took me back to being a first-time mom with an infant in the car again. And you come home. And now, after having 2 of your children out of the house and, the youngest, like, well into high school, so they're very self-sufficient, you come back into caretaking mode because they can't get out of bed. When they do, they're on crutches and in this huge leg brace. So you are now around the clock, caretaking again, food, medication, constant check-ins, middle of the night, making sure their pain is being managed, checking in on them, water, food, helping them get from one place to the other, to the bathroom, days go on, and they're starting to get around a little bit more. Like, did you make sure to take a bath, right? In the sense of using the wipes that they give them because they're not allowed in the shower, and helping them wash their hair and, do all these things that you haven't done in a long time. Excuse me. And there's a part of you that's like, wow, this is exactly what, I'm made for, right? Like this is my natural lane here, the caretaking. But it's not always appreciated when they're older, like it is when they're a tiny little human, right? They really need you when they're little, and they need you when they're grown, but they just don't like to admit it. And so there's a little more attitude, a little more pushback. Um, and you just have to like, and then walk away and like settle your nervous system again because it's a little riled up sometimes. But yeah, it was really just a very difficult thing. And that was the first time as parents, thankfully, that we've ever had to go through something like that. As far as is a big surgery. And I'm thankful we have the opportunity and that we were able to have this done. But it was hard. It was hard, and it's still hard. Thankfully, our biopsy results did just come back, and it is an osteochondroma. So it's a benign tumor. So that is a wonderful, amazing thing. And so hopefully now that it's been removed, we shouldn't have any other problems. And the other one is pretty small, so it should not grow anymore at this point. So they are thinking it should be able to stay. And we'll just have to, kind of keep in touch or go once a year and then every 5 years after a while just to keep an eye on it. But overall, it went well. It was a successful surgery. They're doing better. We're like 6 days out now. So they're able to keep the brace off for the most part, unless we're out of the house, and they can put some weight on the foot. And now they're relearning how to bend their knee. And so my mama heart is a little less stressed, but there's still a little bit, there's still a little bit there, right? Like the swelling, the bruising, the aspirin they have to take every day. Just kind of feeling like I constantly just have to have my eye on them to some degree, at least once an hour, just to make sure everything's okay, even if I'm not physically asking, right? And I just wonder if other parents have felt this way too, or if I'm completely alone and my anxiety is just feeling a little rocked. Um, but when we think about worst case scenarios and things like that, I think it's a pretty normal thing for parents to have their mind go there, right? When they're worried. It's pretty natural for a lot of people to think of all the outcomes, good, bad, and everything in between. I remember talking to the surgeon afterwards and saying, I like to plan for the worst case. So I have all the knowledge I need across the board. And then when the best case happens, then it makes it 10 times better for me, right? Because I don't have to worry about the rest of the plan, but I was planned for it just in case. And the surgeon just laughed at me. And when we went back for the follow up yesterday, the surgeon laughed. He goes, "Oh, I could tell you're so much calmer right now." It's like, yes, yes, I am. We had the biopsy results and everything. So I was like, yes, I feel like I could take a deep breath. Um, and then we think about, another thing I said was how we, when you walk into a situation like that and you have no control, right? How disconcerting that is. I am supposed to protect my children, right? That's how I look at this. Like, that's how I look at life. Like, it's my job to protect them. And here is this situation where you have no power or control. And I've had to live this over and over again as my kids are getting older and, two are out of the house. Like, I have very little control over what they're out there doing in the world. And all I could do is hope that they give mom a call or a text every once in a while and say, "Hey, I'm good." Right. But in these kind of situations, I think it's natural for us who like to have control to really have our nervous systems be very activated and for us to feel very anxious. The gift of caretaking. Like I said earlier, I feel like this is something I've just naturally always been very good at. And it's something that I enjoy doing. And since my kids are all grown, I don't have that opportunity very often. And so I will say that even though I would never wish this or want this for anybody, like there was a part of my soul that was like felt settled in the caretaking because I haven't been able to do it in so long in this like intense or big of a way, right? And it's kind of strange when you think about it, right? Yeah, being moms to adult children is difficult in many ways. But there is just something about watching your child go through something hard that cracks you open in a way nothing else can. Because no matter how old they get, they're still yours. And you want to take every bit of it for them if you could. So if there's anyone listening who's ever been sitting in a waiting room, or if you're going to be sitting in a waiting room, know that it's okay to feel what you're feeling. Know that it's okay to feel a little anxious. Know that it's okay to ask the doctor questions and make sure that you feel good about the answers. It's okay to pace up and down the hallways. It's okay to reach out to others for support. But I always also want you to remind yourself that it's okay to center yourself and ground yourself too. During those hard moments of waiting, some of the best things that I did for myself were one, being very present, reminding myself right now, in this moment, they are safe, we are safe, and we are good. I would go outside and I would just listen to the cars and watch them and focus on, what I could see outside, naming it in my head like, oh, there's the blue car. Oh, look at that bus drive by. Oh, there's the BART. I've never got to see the BART go by in a downtown area. We were in Oakland, and I've never been there. So, it was just like a lot of grounding for me, and whatever makes you be able to take a deep breath in those moments, I encourage you to do. And thankfully, I also had Sean. So I was able to kind of share what I was feeling, and he'd share with me, and we'd kind of just go back and forth. And I will say that's one nice thing about having a partner in healthcare is that as long as he stays calm, I'm only marginally nervous. But if he gets nervous, my anxiety goes off the charts. So he was pretty calm, so that did help center me there too. Please remember that anxiety in these moments, it is not weakness. It is love that just has nowhere to go. And when you show up anyways, even when you're terrified, and you do your best, that is enough. If you're in a season of caretaking right now for a child, a parent, a partner, I see you. It is hard and it is beautiful. And you are doing better than you think. Until next time, I'm Michelle, and this is Someday Is Here.